Hey guys, it's Miss Thomas. And so now we're going to prep our notes for the art principles. And just like those art elements, we're trying to make sure that we have the vocabulary to practice discussing artwork as objectively as we can, because that will help us grow from interacting with artwork more than just slapping a judgment on something that is very much rooted in your personal tastes. Because when we do that, especially if we're working in a studio environment with other people, or maybe eventually if you're on a team at a job in your future, if you solely just, if everything becomes a taste battle, then you're not really seeing what is there. And I think that can be a challenge to creative problem solving. So this is an opportunity for us to expand our vocabulary. Once that vocabulary is expanded, then we can start applying it in our communication with others. So these are the principles of design. So we're going to go ahead and title our notes and they are principles of design and fine art, but we're just going to leave it as principles of design. And you can definitely make it a beautiful title. You don't have to write it as plainly as I just did. All right, so the definition or the art principles. They are how the elements or the ingredients of art are arranged. Arranged or organized in an artwork or design. Bam. So one of the first, this is not an art principle, but I think it's an incredibly important definition and vocabulary word that I want you to have. So our first one, and we're not going to number it because it's not one of the principles of design, but it's composition. All right, composition. That's how we discuss the way in which an artwork is organized. We talk about the composition, how you're choosing to organize things. Wait for the video to write down the full definition, but just know it's coming. You'll write that definition here. And then I do want you to define also rule of thirds, which you will probably summarize, and that's okay. I just want you to have an idea of it. So now we're going to get into our actual, one of our 10 principles of design. So number 1 is movement. Movement. And again, please be conscious of like how large or small you write, and leave yourself space according to that. And I'm not, that was too crooked for me to handle. I'm sorry, guys. Movement. Number 2 is balance. And there are 2 different kinds of balance. So we're going to have our 1 symmetrical. And I'll go ahead and draw lines for each of these definitions. And symmetrical, you can even do a quick visual definition. A heart or a butterfly, those are 2 very, very common symmetrical shapes. And then we also have asymmetry. Oh my goodness. Which is a little more complicated. Go ahead and try and define each of those to the best of your ability. Woo. Number 1 is the heart. And then after balance, we're going to get to unity and harmony. And you'll write that definition as well. Then we have variety. Rhythm. Pattern. Then we get scale. Which is very similar to proportion, but still a little different. And why I'm choosing to call them 2 separate art principles. And proportion is definitely something we've already talked about a whole lot. My eye. We're going to go for emphasis. Oh, sorry. Which is one of my favorite principles of design. And then my last favorite, contrast. And contrast, we're going to talk about 3 different types of contrast. I got to make it, sorry guys, got to make it a little bit bigger. So we have value, the most common is value contrast. High contrast. And in fact, but the value contrast, we're going to talk in terms of high and low. All right, so that's what we got going on. There is one more definition that I would like you to include. Clearly, I have run out of room on my paper, but I'm going to go ahead and write it down. It's more of a concept than a principle, but it's an interesting concept to introduce you to. But juxtaposition, Juxta position, Position, juxtaposition. But it fits in there with contrast. So these, my lovelies, are your 10 principles of design. You are now ready to watch the video, get to see these things being applied to artworks, and read their specific definitions so that we may all have better vocabulary to express what we see going on in artworks of our own and of others.